Get that sword straight!
Meet Mr. Robert Pooley.
Fold those fingers.
He's 87 and he makes swords.
No, 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 no.
For most of his life, Robert ran an aviation business, occasionally purchasing swords as awards for young pilots. He bought them from Wilkinson Sword, yes, the razor guys, who, as well as keeping beards trim, also supplied swords to the MOD. Then suddenly, after having made them for over 200 years, Wilkinson Sword suddenly closed their sword factory. So in 2005, Robert, just 70 years young at the time, decided that he'd have a go.
Beautiful, absolutely wonderful, darling. Right, one more. It just happened. It happened. One thing led to another. I didn't intend to get involved in making swords, but the passion was there. These are the original drawings from Wilkinson Swords.
Robert acquired Wilkinson Sword's plans and drawings and bought some of their old sword-making machines. Now, from his workshop down by the sea, his team of sword makers squirrel away, making the country's only homegrown swords. The steel comes from Sheffield and, once ground into its sword shape, it's sent down here to Shoreham by sea.
This is the one that's just come in. This is what they come in like.
Kevin first grinds the swords back and polishes them up using a series of belts and mops from coarse to fine.
Been doing it so long, it's...
How long have you been doing it?
40 years. It was just a stop job, gap job. I'm still looking for another decent job.
The swords are now ready to be etched. The designs are done by computer and transferred to a nylon screen to be printed onto the blade. It's a busy time for Adam's team, who've just received the King's new cipher.
We have to update all the artwork, really, because her royal cipher and crown is on everything.
Is that a big job?
Yeah, lots of work involved. Luckily, he didn't have too wide a cipher, which makes it more complicated to fit on certain blades. Some of the older monarchs have used much more complicated ciphers, whereas this one's quite a nice one to use.
The design is printed onto the sword using roofing felt. Harry here then brushes it with acid, which dissolves a thin layer of the metal everywhere except the parts covered by the paint. It's washed off with white spirit, leaving the design raised above the surface. The sword then goes off for the detail and the edges to be painted by hand by some very patient people. The accoutrements are prepared and the swords are assembled.
The bliss of holding swords in your hand. Something very, very, very special. People think of swords as for fighting. Well, that's long since past. A sword really is for the family to look after, and for the parades, and for weddings and christenings, and wonderful things like that. It is not for fighting anymore.
So this is perhaps my favourite bit of the sword shop. This is basically the repair shop for swords. And this is Pete. Say hello, Pete.
Hello.
What have you got on at the moment?
Well, we've got a lot in at the moment. So we've got 3 full shelves full of refurbs. During lockdown, we had a mass in. I think everybody was stuck at home and poking around in their lofts and garages and sheds and finding Grandad's rotten sword. Sword's in this sort of condition. Quite a lot of work to bring that one back up.
So how do you do it? Where do you start?
Well, it's be a strip down first, get it into its component parts, and then get it in the polishing room and see if we can get that rust off and see what we've got left underneath the rust. This one, let's have a look. This is probably, this is Victorian, this one. George V. Oh, there you go, I'm getting the right selection. George VI. So he had a long reign, so he's got quite a few. Not as many as there are E2Rs though. Obviously, what was the current pattern until a few weeks ago. I haven't got a Charles III to show you yet, I'm afraid. There's so many naval swords, crazy amount of them. But I think they used to have to purchase one with a uniform, which is the reason why there's so many naval swords. But they do vary quite a lot. They seem pretty unregulated. Some funny looking ones out there. Some of the backs look like otters. It's supposed to be a lion, but they're otters. Some of them look like dogs, a lot of them. I suppose some of these people may never have seen a lion when they were creating them, you know.
Peter, our head cutler, gets so carried away about the history of all these swords. Just absolutely wonderful. People sometimes go out of here crying, tears in their eyes. They can't believe the bit of rubbish that they've brought in is such a beautiful, beautiful sword.
Quite often you don't know who's held a sword, you know, whose hand has it been in. I had the King's sword in recently, a little bit of maintenance on it, just a few little bits falling off, needed repairing.
What are you using here?
Just your normal sort of toothbrush, medium sort of bristles.
To polish a sword?
Yeah, basically, it really does get into all the little bits.
What's the worst bit of your job?
Probably polishing. We do lots and lots of polishing. So we've got to polish the hilt, your back piece, the ferrule, the fall down, the mullet. Spent hours picking and picking. I love building the swords. Don't like building the scabbards. That's why I get Lance to do it. But yeah, just sort of lose yourself in the job.
So there's something very interesting about the handle, isn't there? Oh, just touch that. That's probably not allowed, is it?
That's all right, we'll clean that off afterwards. I just did the same thing. Some people can touch it and some people can't. It depends on your pH value.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
okay.
Robert's a blade ruster.
Is he?
Yes, he is.
There are people that are blade rusters?
Yeah, there's some engineers that can't touch bare steel whilst others can.
Oh.
So it really depends what your pH is, whether you're acidic or not.
Yes, so now tell me about this handle, because it looks like plastic, but it's not.
No, it's fish skin. It's usually some type of ray.
Okay.
So here's one of the skins you can see. So all the bobbles on the surface are keratin, the same as your hair and teeth. And when it's sanded, it smells like burning hair. It's a disgusting smell.
Are you happy?
I'm happy.
Right.
Robert's team have made and rejuvenated swords for dignitaries, military leaders and the royal family. As well as the British forces, his swords have gone all over the world and he still flies out himself to Australia and New Zealand to present them. Not bad for a man who set up a sword shop at 70. Hannah King, Forces News, in Shoreham by Sea. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.